What is going on, Ape Nation? You already know that anytime something shady happens in the marketplace that affects us, the retail investor, or the American people, I'm going to be talking about it. So today we've got a fun one because we're not only going to be talking about Ken Griffin, which of course you probably already knew that because we always talk about Ken Griffin because he's very special and we hold him very dear to our hearts because he is responsible for this movement. But not just Ken Griffin, we're also going to be talking about Nancy Pelosi and the most recent events or recent crap that she's been involved in. And we are going to get right into this, ladies and gentlemen. But before we do, I'm going to ask you to please go ahead and smash that like button so that the YouTube algorithm shares this video with as many apes as possible, because it will really piss Ken Griffin off because he doesn't want you or your ape buddies to know anything about this. Now, of course, if you're not subscribed yet, I'm really not sure what in the hell you're waiting on, because I drop content just like this every single day. So go ahead and do so. Tap that notification bell so that you're notified every time I drop a video and you're never left in the dust. Anyhow, enough of that. Let's go ahead and get into the video. So we're going to start by talking about Nancy Pelosi. And the reason we're talking about Nancy Pelosi today is because of some recent events that came up. But before we can talk about these recent events, I need to give you a little bit of background information so that you're pretty much aware of the entire situation and know how we got here today. So the story starts back in 2012. It actually starts a lot earlier than that, but we're going to start it with 2012 and talk about what happened there. And what happened there is that a law was passed. This law was passed due to problems we were seeing in the market, and those problems had to do with congressional stock trading. That's right. When I say congressional stock trading, I mean members of Congress, lawmakers, being able to trade stocks for their own greed. I mean, in order to make a profit, basically. So the issue with that is, and there's a couple of issues here, okay? We're going to start with the most important one. The most important one, number one, these guys are supposed to be voting on issues, making laws based on what's best for the people, best for us. Instead, it seems that they've been voting and making decisions, making laws based on what's best for their personal, portfolios, based on what's good for their pockets. Now, how corrupt is this? How messed up is this? You and I both know the answer. So really, I guess there is no need to answer that. But here's the deal. Other than, the problem that it causes for us, the people, because they're not making decisions that are in our best interest, it also isn't fair. And why is it not fair? Well, it's because they're privy to certain information that they're able to access in order to make decisions about their portfolio, decisions about trading stocks, which allow them to profit immensely, while the little guy like you and I, the retail investor, gets beat down in the market when, let's say, a bad situation occurs, such as, that pandemic that we all experienced. Well, all these members of Congress got to sell millions of dollars of their stocks and then buy back in while they were much cheaper and profit handsomely, while you and I did not reap the rewards here. So do you see a problem here? Do you see what I'm getting at? Well, good. So now that we've got that out of the way, let's talk about another issue. So the DOJ, okay, Department of Justice, they've been investigating this, what they refer to as insider trading. And in the last 10 years, no one has been freaking held accountable for insider stock trades, okay? So these guys are doing it. We know they're doing it. They're getting away with it, but yet no one is prosecuted. No one is charged. Nothing has been done. Now, the DOJ, it's the same story as always. Well, it's so hard to prove insider trading. It's, what the hell is so hard about it? I mean, that's the same bullcrap they were giving us with the whole Ken Griffin situation, how he's pretty much ripping off the retail investor. We're losing money while he's getting freaking richer and richer by the day. So now we're actually depending on the DOJ. If you've seen my previous videos about the DOJ from, I believe it was late October, I think October 28th was the first video when Lisa Monaco came out and said that they're going to really go after white-collar crime. Yeah, I mean, it makes me wonder, are they really? And even if they do, what in the hell are they going to do about it? Because it seems like they just do a whole bunch of investigating and never do anything about it once they catch the culprits. They kind of just either give them a slap on the wrist or turn a blind eye and act like, well, nothing happened. Anyhow, back to the 2012 law called the Stock Act, which is supposed to prohibit members of Congress from being able to trade on inside information. Apparently, that hasn't worked out too well because no one has been held accountable for it. So now some members of Congress, the ones that appear to be honest, are saying that maybe they should ban stock trading altogether for any member of Congress while they're, serving the people, while they're in those positions. I think that's a hell of a idea. But when Nancy Pelosi was asked about it just yesterday at a press conference, it seems that she has a difference of opinion. So I'm going to show you the clip of the question she was asked and her response, and then we can look into why in the hell she would say that.
Madam Speaker, Insider just completed a 5-month investigation finding that 49 members of Congress and 182 senior congressional staffers have violated the Stock Act, the insider trading law. I'm wondering if you have any reaction to that, and secondly, should members of Congress and their spouses be banned from trading individual stocks while serving in Congress?
No, I don't know to the second one. We have a responsibility to report in the stock, on the stock, but I'm not familiar with that 5-month review, but if people aren't reporting, they should be.
Why should they be banned?
Because this is a free market and we're a free market economy. They should be able to participate in that.
Okay, so just in case you missed it, she said because this is a free market economy and people should be allowed to participate. Okay, people. But we're not talking about people here, Nancy Pelosi. We're talking about the people that make decisions for the people. The ones that write the rules that we have to abide by, but they themselves do not have to abide by. But what happens if we do not abide by the rules? Well, hell, we don't abide by the rules. We do some prison time or, face some other travesties. But these people here, these people, okay, that are allowed to participate, they can break the rules that they're freaking making for us and not have to face any consequences. How in the hell is that okay? So I don't know about how you guys feel, but personally, I do not believe that this is okay. Now, I don't know if everybody caught the first part of the question, which really wasn't a question. It was just a statement where the guy asking the question says that Insider just completed a 5-month investigation and found 49 members of Congress and 182 senior congressional staffers have violated the Stock Act. And this investigation actually was turned into a documentary. It's only about 13 minutes long. I'm going to have it on the end screen here so you can go back and watch it. And I suggest that you do because it's extremely eye-opening. But what we're going to do now, I'm going to show you another short clip. And then after this clip, we're going to get to talking about what we talk about best on this channel. And that's Ken Griffin. We're going to talk about Ken Griffin and Nancy Pelosi so I can tell you how these guys are in cahoots together.
Is but one more example of good things happening to powerful members of Congress. Another is the access to initial public stock offerings, the opportunity to buy a new stock at insider prices just as it goes on the market. They can be incredibly lucrative and hard to get.
If you were a senator, Steve, and I gave you $10,000 cash, one or both of us is probably going to go to jail. But if I'm a corporate executive and you're a senator, and I give you IPO shares in stock, and over the course of one day, that stock nets you $100,000, that's completely legal.
And former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and her husband had participated in at least 8 IPOs. One of those came in 2008 from Visa, just as a troublesome piece of legislation that would have hurt credit card companies began making its way through the House. Undisturbed by a potential conflict of interest, the Pelosi's purchased 5,000 shares of Visa at the initial price of $44. 2 days later, it was trading at $64. The credit card legislation never made it to the floor of the House. Congresswoman Pelosi also declined our request for an interview, but agreed to call on us if we attended her news conference. Madam Leader, I wanted to ask you why you and your husband back in March of 2008 accepted and participated in a very large IPO deal from Visa. At a time there was major legislation affecting the credit card companies making its way through the House. And did you consider that to be a conflict of interest?
I don't know what your point is of your question. Is there some point that you want to make with that?
Well, I guess what I'm asking is, do you think it's all right for a speaker to accept a very preferential, favorable stock deal.
Well, we didn't.
And you participated in the IPO.
Well, I have many
And at the time, you were
investments, but that
Speaker of the House. You don't think it was a conflict of interest or had the appearance of a conflict of interest?
It only has the appearance if you decide that you're going to have elaborate on a false premise. But it's not true, and that's that.
I don't understand what part's not true.
Yes, sir. That I would act upon an investment. Yes, sir.
Congresswoman Pelosi pointed out that the tough credit card legislation eventually passed, but it was 2 years later and was initiated in the Senate.
I will hold my record in terms of fighting the credit card companies as a Speaker of the House or as a member of Congress up against anyone's.
Corporate executives, members of the executive branch, and all federal judges are subject to strict conflict of interest rules, but not the people who write the laws.
If you are a member of Congress and you sit on the Defense Committee, you are free to trade defense stock as much as you want to. If you're on the Senate Banking Committee, you can trade bank stock as much as you want, and that regularly goes on in all these committees.
There should only be one thing in your mind when you're drafting legislation. Is this good for the United States of America? That's it. If you're starting to say to yourself, how's this going to affect my investments? You've got a mixed agenda and a mixed purpose for being there. And
Brian Baird is a former congressman from Washington State who served 6 terms in the House before retiring last year. He spent half of those 12 years trying to get his colleagues to prohibit insider trading in Congress and establish some rules governing conflicts of interest.
one line in a bill in Congress can be worth millions and millions of dollars. I mean, there was one night we had a late night caucus, and you could kind of tell how a vote was going to go the next day. And I literally walked home and I thought, man, if you went online and made some significant trades, you could make a lot of money on this. You could just see it. You could see the potential here.
So in 2004, Baird and Congresswoman Louise Slaughter introduced the Stock Act, which would make it illegal for members of Congress to trade stocks on non-public information and require them to report their stock trades every 90 days instead of once a year.
How far did you get with this? We didn't get anywhere. Just flat died. Went nowhere.
How many co-sponsors did you get?
I think we got 6.
6 doesn't sound like a very big amount.
It's not, Steve. You could have National Cherry Pie Week and get 100 co-sponsors. I mean,
when Baird finally managed to get a congressional hearing on the Stock Act, almost no one showed up. It's reintroduced every session, but is buried so deep in the Capitol, we had trouble finding congressmen who had ever heard of it.
Have you ever heard of the Stock Act?
the what?
The Stock Act. Do you know anything about it?
No.
Congressman? Congressman?
I haven't heard about that one yet.
Have you ever heard of something called the Stock Act?
No. I've heard about it, but not. I can't say it's an issue I spent a lot of time on, though. I would have no problem with that.
Okay.
But then again, I am a big fan of, instant disclosure on almost everything.
They're looking for co-sponsors.
And yet, I've never heard of it.
When you have a bill like this that makes so much sense, and you can't get the co-sponsorships, you can't get the leadership to move it, it gets tremendously frustrating. Set aside that it's the right thing to do, it's good politics. People want their Congress to function well. It still baffles me.
But what baffles Baird even more is that the situation has gotten worse. In the past few years, a whole new totally unregulated $100 million industry has grown up in Washington called political intelligence. It employs former congressmen and former staffers to scour the halls of the Capitol, gathering valuable non-public information, then selling it to hedge funds and traders on Wall Street who can trade on it.
Now, if you're a political intel guy and you get that information long before it's public, long before somebody wakes up the next morning and reads or watches the television or whatever, you've got it. And you can make real-time trades before anybody else.
Baird says it's taken what would be a criminal enterprise anyplace else in the country and turned it into a profitable business model.
The town is all about people saying, what do you know that I don't know? And this is the currency of Washington, D.C. And it's that kind of informational currency that translates into real currency. Maybe it's over drinks. Maybe somebody picks up a phone and says, just to let you know, it's in the bill. Trades happen. Can't trace them. If you can trace them, it's not illegal. It's a pretty great system. feel like an idiot to not take advantage of.
All right, so now to the part that you've all been waiting for. Let's talk about Ken Griffin and Nancy Pelosi. So I've got this article pulled up. It says Pelosi, McCarthy, big money donors start giving early toward House races, with chambers up for grabs. So the Nancy Pelosi Victory Fund, which raises money for the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, brought in over $4 million in the second quarter. Guess who gave Nancy Pelosi $500,000? That's $500,000. He was one of the biggest donors here. Well, that would be none other than Ken Griffin. It would appear that the only person that donated more than Ken Griffin was a guy named Howard Lutnick, the CEO of financial services firm Cantor Fitzgerald, and he gave Nancy Pelosi $700,000, or to the committee, back in June.